Okay. The channel is live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adventure on So Many Levels. Tonight, we're playing Cowboy Bebop, the role-playing game on so many levels.
Yes.
I'm Christiana Ellis, and for this game, I am the big shot. Uh, and our players will be bounty hunters. Although, probably for tonight, all we'll really end up doing is kind of playing around with how this system works and creating characters. But in the meantime, first we have with us Nobilis
Hello.
and David Archambault.
Hello.
And we are expecting one more to join us as soon as he can, but we'll bring him in when he's ready. But so I discovered this role-playing game by searching for role-playing games like Cowboy Bebop. And it turns out that there was one. Now, obviously, I think there are a lot of different games that you could potentially run a Cowboy Bebop-like setting or, similar type of game in lots of different systems, of course. But once I discovered that there was an officially licensed one, I was curious about it. And it has some really neat ideas in it that I kind of wanted to walk through with some other people. So here we are. Just to start us off in terms of knowledge of the material, Cowboy Bebop, if people are not familiar, is an anime from the early 2000s. It has 26 total episodes and one movie, I believe. And the movie takes place, if I recall, somewhere indeterminate in the early part of the show. But I remember being blown away by this show when it was first on, and I have watched the entire series several times. So I'm pretty up to speed on Cowboy Bebop as a setting and as a piece of media. But how about the two of you?
I've watched it. I've watched the anime twice through.
Mm-hmm.
um, I watched the first 10 episodes after thinking about my character
Sure.
for this game. So
Yeah, well, it is certainly one of those anime that is out there to be watched. It's not hard to find if if you look for the streaming. So, if people are interested, they could check it out. Although, not to be too self-deprecating about it, but the number of people watching this who haven't already heard of Cowboy Bebop is probably a low number.
Pretty small.
But in any case, you may not have heard of the Cowboy Bebop role-playing game, which is what we're talking about tonight. So let's jump in with some of the neat stuff. First of all, it's got lots of nice art of the characters and stuff from the show in the book itself. Lots of fun screenshots in that way.
Frames.
You know what? I'm going to adjust my screen a little bit so that it's bigger on and easier to read this book on my screen, and it's going to require me to briefly adjust the there we go, adjust my layout here on the stream. Okay, so one of the interesting actually let me get have to there we go. One of the things that I really liked right away in this is talking about what they call foundations here, which are just sort of guiding principles for how this game works best, especially in the assumption that what you would like is to have adventures that feel somewhat like the show. And so some of the ones that I think are really neat in there, money is never enough, but it's never a problem. Without just reading all of the text here, the general idea of just saying that the characters are not rich, they are doing this dangerous bounty hunting job for money, but it's never something where we're having to track how many wulongs, which is the credit, the currency they use in this setting. You're never having to say, well, you want to buy a hot dog at this this refueling station, but you don't have enough wulongs. Like, that's not what Cowboy Bebop is about. You're doing this for money. You're working for money. You need money, but money is never the end all be all. You might choose to do something else instead of taking easy money. Money is never the thing. So it's like it's always this lurking specter of need, but it's never going to force you to do it.
The refrigerator might be empty, but it doesn't make your character any slower.
Yeah. The past will come back to haunt you, and it's, you know, this game actually has mechanics focused around the idea that your character is kind of running from something. Aha! Welcome,
hey, Jason.
Jason.
You're muted.
All right, let me adjust the layout.
There we go.
Welcome, welcome. We were just getting started talking about some of the stuff in the foundations section of this RPG. But first and foremost, this is Jason Banks. Hey, hello.
Hello.
And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this already, but we all went around and answered the question of how familiar were each of us with the Cowboy Bebop material.
I've never heard of it. Actually.
Never heard of it.
never heard of it. Never heard of it. I hear it's one of those things. It's a cartoon from the from beyond our shores. I heard.
Yeah. So it must be a Western or something, right?
Yeah, something like that, like a noir detective story.
Yes. In any case, I suspected this would be something you would be interested in when I proposed it. But so we were just touching on the foundations section, and so the past, money is never enough, but it's never a problem. The past will come back to haunt you. Death is always dramatic, never meaningless. Meaning, like death may well be part of the stories being told, but it's not cheap. Right? Like it's not, if a character dies, it should mean something. Mm-hmm. And not feel, and so that's that. But then there's also mechanics foundations. Drive your character like a stolen car in an action movie. Now, this is not a game where you're being careful. This is not a game where you carefully craft a perfect strategy and spend an hour and a half discussing how you're going to approach a given thing before you go in there. Is that what they do on the show? No, it's not.
Not at all.
So this game works more like the show than that. Writer, director, actor, and audience. And one of the things that I think is also neat about this game is that it is really intended for you, all of us, the players, to be approaching the play and describing things as though we are describing what happens on the show, right? And so it's not just I do this move, I do this move. It's, you're saying, here's what happens in the scene. And you're describing it like you would describing the scene of a TV show. That means that it also could include having players occasionally take on the roles of some NPCs in certain scenes, or any of those sorts of things. Anyone can add details for how to make this the best TV show it could be. Characters are made through actions. The character sheet doesn't have any place to list or explain the ideas and the feelings of the character. There are only graphic aids and props that you can use to visually build an anime-style scene. So how do we know what kind of character or what kind of person your character is? By what they do. And so lots of good stuff there. I like the inclusion of something like that in one of these books. It also has a section on safety techniques, which is always good. But we've played together for a while. I think we are going to skip past that for tonight. But certainly, it's an important thing to consider, especially if you're ever playing with like a new group of people. So rules. This game has some really neat ideas. And I want to talk just a little bit about how the rules work before we go into the character building stuff. One of the mechanics is a fairly straightforward one, which is tests, which is a lot like checks in a Dungeons and Dragons game, in the sense that you are if there's ever something where you're trying to do something and the outcome is in doubt, then it might require a test where you roll dice, and depending on how they go, it tells you what happens, right? So pretty straightforward. Each session of gameplay is divided into 3 tabs. And tabs it's kind of making it like a reference to like guitar sheet music. And part of the way that works is, again, back to the TV show thing. If we imagine that we want each session to feel like an episode of this long-running show, when you are writing an episode of a TV show, you have like an introductory section where we catch up with the characters. What are they doing today? They get the mission. And then you have a middle section where it's like, okay, now we're going after the thing, whatever it is, the bounty. But you can't get them yet, right? Because you have to, we're building to the finale. And so this literally has a mechanic in it where the bounty cannot be caught until you uncover their secret. And so often the middle section will be about trying to figure out what the secret is that will allow you to catch them. And then the third one is, the big finale. And in a reference to the opening theme of Cowboy Bebop, these 3 tabs are called GEST, GEST, which stands for Get Everyone and Their Stuff Together. And then the second tab is called 3, 2, 1, and then the third tab is called Let's
Change.
Let's Jam. Which, if you're not familiar with Cowboy Bebop, are words in the music of the original show. But so the next thing that is important to understand about these tests is that every time you do a roll, you're choosing one of 5 different approaches. And this is a page that, we might have to refer back to these pages a lot because it's very atypical of most role-playing games. But so there can be rock approaches, dance approaches, blues, tango, or jazz approaches. And each of those is kind of a different description of the kind of thing. So when you do a test, like you do a roll, you choose your approach, and it's to reflect the kind of thing you're trying to do. So for example, if you are trying to withstand something overwhelming, that's a rock approach. It involves cool actions where the character is trying to do something under a lot of pressure, keeping their composure, or staying calm in the face of danger. If you're trying to be the unstoppable force, that's a dance approach. It involves dramatic, exuberant actions, displays of stamina and recklessness, or an endless flow of energy to make the character the center of attention. If you're trying to face inner feelings, that's a blues approach. It involves spirituality, the character's self-awareness and understanding of emotions, or the ability to look within and gain enlightenment. If you're trying to influence other people, that's a tango approach. It involves being charming and seductive, or intimidating and terrifying, getting others to do the character's bidding by words and presence. Or if you're trying to do something by understanding the environment, blending in and being smart, that's a jazz approach. It involves analysis, deep understanding, applying skill, knowing what to do and how to do it, and knowing the flow and going with it. And so anytime you are doing a test, like where you're going to do a roll, you have to say what your approach is. And this can matter because some of the things that you might be trying to accomplish in a given session are going to be themed by one of those approaches. And the way that usually works is, let's say you have a 6-step clock to uncover the the bounty's secret. And the way that has been sort of initially prepared, at least, to do that is that there's someone that knew them and you have to convince them to tell you, right? So that might be a tango clock. And you can fill that clock with any approach, but the last tick, the one that fills it completely, has to come from a tango approach. And so I think the way we can kind of try to remember these, and obviously we can refer back to them anytime we want, but like rock is kind of just like you're trying to be tough, tough like a rock, right? And then dance is, flashy. Blues, obviously, is soul searching. Tango involves other people, just like, takes two to tango, that whole idea. And then jazz is like improvising with what's around you. That's kind of the idea. And so when we create characters, you're going to have traits that are each assigned to one approach or another. And so when you are going to do a test, and roll, the number of dice is based on a few different things. One is, which part of the session is it yet? If depending on which tab it is, you roll a different number of dice, which means by the end, you are rolling more dice because you're getting closer, things are higher stakes. But at the same time, the target of difficulty is higher also. So tests are kind of a little, I don't want to say they're complicated in the sense that they're more complicated than any other game. It's just they're so different than any other game. It's more of a learning curve in that way. So what it comes down to is there's a base number of dice for the current, whichever session tab it is. You would roll 1 for the first tab, 2 for the second, 3 for the third. And then these are all D6s. And so then for every trait that you want to use from your chosen approach, so if you're doing a rock approach, you can, and you have rock traits, you can add 1d6 for each of those traits. And we'll talk more about that later. But then also there's a few other things that can add or subtract dice, but that's the basic idea. And for every time you're doing a test, there is a target number you're trying to reach. And this number is not like D&D where either there's a specific monster block that says that the number, like the AC is always 18, and it's not like games where the GM is kind of just playing by feel to decide how high it should be. There is a default difficulty for each tab, and various mechanical things can make that go up or down. But the idea is you roll all your D6s, you add them all up, and if the total is above the target difficulty, you get 1 hit. If you get at least 2 6s in your roll, you get a second hit. And then there are also shocks, which are, there's always going to be at least 1. And if you roll any 1s, that is another shock. And so every roll is going to give you some number of hits and shocks. And with hits, you get good things. You can fill positive clocks, or you can do other things with those. Shocks are used by the big shot, the GM, to do other things, like fill negative clocks or cause other things to happen. And there are lots of moves that can kind of interface with all of that, but that is sort of the basic mechanic that's happening. So does anyone have any questions about that? Obviously, I don't expect you to all just have a perfect handle on that yet. But any thoughts or questions, or should we?
No, it's cool. Let's go.
All right. So as we um, uh, so there are various riffs, is what they essentially call moves here, and a lot of those are going to alter these things. And so, for example, you can get personally involved, and when you do that, you can. Every character starts with on the character sheet. It's actually framed as like the revolving chamber of a revolver with 6 bullet holes in it, and you can mark one of those bullets to add 2 dice to the pool. So when you want to do your move, you can roll 2 extra dice by marking one of those bullets. But here's the thing. In the fiction, you would have to explain, why is this particular move you're making related to something about what you're doing is personal to like your history and your backstory. Because if you mark your 6th bullet, whatever it was that the group was trying to do at that moment is instantly a failure. And mechanically, there's different sessions that they call personal sessions, where it's all about that character's backstory. And so if you ever mark your 6th bullet, you immediately fail whatever it was you were just trying to do, and the next session has to be a personal session for your character. Which, again, it's like we're trying to make a show that's like Cowboy Bebop, right? You can one of the things that you can do with to absorb shocks is you can wound a trait. Like if you have a trait that you just used to for your role, you can say something has happened to that, and so now it's temporarily unavailable. But you can remove those wounds with a show your wounds move. You can, let's see, you must describe how your character's wounds are making things hard for them, and then you do your roll with disadvantage. But then at the end of that move, however it turns out, you can unmark the wound of those traits. And it's just about kind of highlighting that you've got an issue at the moment. You can push, which is to add... basically, you can get 1 extra hit that you might need, but you get more shocks also. And so that might be a thing of like, well, if you only need 1 more tick to fill a crucial clock, you might be willing to accept that there will be some other consequences if you can just get that 1 that you need, right? Yeah. There's also a gamble where you can basically say, if you don't like the result, you can essentially do it again with higher stakes. You can do a show off, which is you spend 1 rhythm, which is it's just basically a resource that you roll for at the start of every session. And you can use that to gain and spend a hit immediately before or after any other test that you've just done. The assist mechanic, literally you can't do it in the first tab. But in the second tab and then the third tab, you can spend your rhythm to give advantage to another character doing a test. Likewise, there's in the second and third tabs, and this is again reflecting that the stakes go up as you go, you can do more stuff. And so you can improvise, which allows you to spend rhythm to use, like if you're trying to do a rock approach, but you want to be able to use a jazz trait, you can do that with the improvise move, but only in the second and third tab. And then jam, which is only in the third tab, let's jam, you can basically donate your character's groove to the test of someone else's. And so none of that is going to make total sense yet, because you kind of have to understand all the pieces. But these are what we call riffs.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
The idea of show your wounds is like, I imagine someone with like this really nice flowing coat as one of their traits. Like they do all sorts of style on it. Something happens and it gets burned or shot up or something.
Yeah,
it's fixed. They can't use it.
Yeah. Well, right. And so the show your wounds would be specifically to highlight how whatever happens to it is causing you difficulty. But then as a result, like once you have kind of demonstrated fictionally that you are suffering some consequences for what happened, you can kind of recover somewhat and rally somewhat. And the idea would be that you're trying to describe this all fictionally, because all of these traits are things like when you use a trait in a given test, you need to describe how that is playing in, even if it's not something that would necessarily be an obvious advantage, right? Like we'll get into this when we actually start talking about assigning traits, but a trait will often be more something like, what would we see when the character does something? So for example, Spike's blue suit is one of his traits because it looks cool. And often when he will do a thing, it kind of just highlights how cool he looks in his blue suit, right? And so that can be a trait, even though it's not obvious that his suit would necessarily be helpful in a more realistic way, right? So it's about style and looks in a lot of ways, or it can be at least. And so in any case, we got some golden rules on how things move forward. We have clocks, which is something we've seen in other games. So for example, if you're trying to uncover the character's secret, or you're looking for them in a hiding place, we might set a clock, and then when you get hits on your tests, you fill segments of the clock, and so on. But then bad clocks get filled with shocks, and so on. But golden rules, only forward. You never erase a tick from a clock. They only move forward. Close it or leave it. You can open clocks to complete extra objectives or add events to a scene, but when the tab is finished, which is the third, the 3 tabs in each session, when the tab is finished, any events tied to unfilled clocks will not happen. So meaning whatever it is that closes the tab, if you had some secondary thing you were doing, when the tab closes, that's done and it didn't happen. And then context prevails. And it's basically just saying, in theory, if it ever makes sense in the fiction that you would want to spend one of your hits from a successful test to fill one of the bad clocks, one of the threat clocks, or if I ever wanted to use shocks to fill one of the positive objective clocks, that's allowed. It's not against the rules, even though normally it wouldn't make sense to do that. Okay. So here's where it's talking a little bit about, some of the way sessions work, but I think let's move along a little bit more to like classic session. Let's talk a little bit about, because you can do a lot of campaign stuff, but the classic session is intended to be the most default, like there is a bounty of the week and the characters are going to try to catch that bounty and they will explore various things. But the idea is that by the end of the episode, they will have either caught that bounty or not. And then the episode following will be something else. Right. And so you can have a session genre where it has a rule for how that gets decided. But the session genre is going to be one of those 5 approaches. And whichever one it is, let's say you've decided that the session genre is dance. That means anyone who uses dance traits will get extra dice when they use it. And it will kind of imply that the flavor of this one is lots of people doing extravagant, big, flashy things, as opposed to a blues session might be one where you're really talking through stuff and people are dealing with their feelings and history and emotions more and that sort of thing. And it has lots of rules for how you can set up and create what the bounty is, and they have lots of tables that you can roll on for bounties and stuff like that. Then there's also personal sessions and other things, and filler sessions and session breakpoints, where if you're playing a whole campaign, it actually has mechanics for how do you have like that mid-season episode where it's a big deal, it's a two-parter, and lots of big stuff happens, but you're not ready for it to end the whole season yet. It's almost like you're setting yourself up for the big season finale that will happen later, right? And then you have like the season finale stuff, and it's got some neat mechanics for that, even though that we're probably not gonna get that far tonight. But so, characters. Let's talk about characters. To start, obviously, you're going to have a character name and the basic, just general concept for your character. And this can be anything. Anyone who is not familiar with Cowboy Bebop, one of the characters on the crew is literally a dog. And not like a dog person, but a dog.
The dog.
Mine is a very special dog. He's a data dog. He's super and smart. But he is a dog. He does not act like a person. He does not talk. He's a dog. He's a corgi, and he's very cute. He's a super good boy, but he is also arguably the smartest member of the crew. And
you know something? That's a very strong argument.
yeah. But so the point I make in bringing up Ein, other than I like talking about him, is your character concept is allowed to be something like that. Like, I'm a super smart dog. It doesn't have to be like a standard sort of character type. It can be just about anything. All that would really need to be present in order for it to sort of fit in the setting is your character probably has to have enough agency that they can actually make decisions for themselves, and they are choosing to help catch bounties in this way, right? Mm-hmm. Because if they're not doing that, then why are they in the show, right? We have to imagine we're watching a show about a bunch of space bounty hunters, and if the character is present, they have to be involved in that in some meaningful way. Right. But it does not require, but the concept could be just the one sentence version of who your character is and what their deal is. And then we have traits. And so we kind of touched on these earlier. When you are creating your character, let me skip ahead and briefly show what the character sheet looks like in this session, because it's kind of wacky. So if you're looking at the screen, we've got lots of these little honeycomb-looking hexagons here, and each set of 3 is labeled with one of the 5 approaches that I mentioned: rock, blues, jazz, dance, tango. And when we create the characters, you're going to assign yourself 4 traits. And you start by having to put you put 1 trait in each of 3 approaches. So your first 3 have to all be in different approaches. But you decide on the trait and you decide which approach it gets in. And then your 4th one can be in any of them. So you could put that in a 4th approach, or you could have 2 traits in a single approach, but no more than 2. And so that's how that's going to work. But the book is actually really good about highlighting the way these traits work. Because as I mentioned, the trait could be something that is just related to physical appearance. It could be a cybernetic implant that you've got. It could be something that you wear, a tool or weapon or a piece of gear that you've got, or miscellaneous. And it has lots of examples of how any of those sorts of things might go in any approach. For example, you mentioned, Spike Spiegel, their version of his character sheet, one of his traits is literally his blue suit, right? So that would be like a wearable thing. But then, so deep blue eyes as a trait is an example trait. And they say, well, as if you wanted that to be a rock trait, as a rock trait, in the middle of a gunfight, the character's deep blue eyes might stand out amidst the roars of the guns and the flashes of rifles. And so we imagine the shot where, in the midst of all this chaos, we highlight on their cool deep blue eyes, right? Whereas a blues trait, it could be a close-up of the characters. They gaze at their stars, their deep blue eyes sadly fixed on the sidereal. Sidereal. I'm not familiar with that word. It's sidereal. Firmament. Or if that trait were to be wounded, the character's deep blue eyes are tinged with sorrow. Their low, mournful gaze does not allow anyone to make eye contact, right? And so the idea is you need to decide for this trait, like what aspect of your character and what is it that how do they use that in the show, right? And it doesn't have to be something where like
And
you
it's
have a
not
gun
how
that you
does,
use to shoot, right?
it's not even how the character uses the trait. It's how
The show.
the show uses the trait.
Yes, exactly. And so it has other examples in here: messy blonde hair, red lipstick, twisting tentacles. And it gives examples of how all of these could be different approaches, traits for different approaches, and how you might handle describing it when that trait is wounded. So cybernetics, you could have hydraulic legs, and as a rock trait, or let's say plastic face, as a tango trait, the character's plastic face lets them change their features to pass as someone else, deceiving the enemies on their trail. Or as a jazz trait, the plastic face might include a range of accessories the character might use to their advantage. Perhaps their plasteel teeth let them shred through the handcuffs that bind them. But if it's wounded, rough treatment results in a glitching plastic face that grimaces randomly, or excessive artificial tearing due to tension short circuits the character's jaw. So these traits that we're talking about really can be anything. But what it should be is something that you can describe how we see it and how that plays into what they're doing, it being, cool or more effective or whatever. And that's what traits should be. And so, and again, like if you wanted to have like some special bit of gear where like you're all bounty hunters, you probably all have access to a gun. But if you want to have a special gun that's cool and gives you bonuses, that might be a trait. You have a trait for a cool special gun, right? Old revolver. As a blues trait, the old revolver reminds the character of their days in the ISSP, the Solar System Police. How many rounds did this old service weapon fire? Or as a tango trait, the old revolver is surprisingly large and intimidating, so even without the character taking it out of its bulky holster, anyone who notices it gets nervous. So that's kind of how how the traits work. Any questions about traits?
Nope. I mean, of all the things we've dealt with, that's the most straightforward. And
Yeah.
having to do with role playing games we played in the past.
I think the key is just understanding that you don't necessarily have to have a reason for why that trait would definitely allow you to do something specific. It's really just more about like imagining the TV show of like if this character just has really cool hair that they always flip around before they do a cool thing, like that's enough. That's enough for for them to what would the animation focus on when they do a thing. All right, so we will talk about assigning traits in a little bit, but I want to touch base on a little bit more of this stuff that a character is going to have before we go back to that. Another thing that your character needs to have is a memory. And obviously, all the characters presumably have some degree of memory, unless you're playing Faye Valentine, whose defining trait is that she has amnesia. But your memory is a short sentence on your character sheet that describes the past haunting your character. That past is not decided yet. It will emerge from gameplay. And so part of that is, well, okay, I'm actually a little bit confused now that I read that, because part of what happens is that I think the implication here is you could decide what the memory you would want it to be in a broad sense with your character concept. But I think part of what is intended here is the times that you choose to do the get involved riff, where you mark a bullet to get extra dice, that is where you are saying something about that roll is directly related to your memory, right? And then once you have filled it up, you have all of these things together that are going to play into what your your personal session would be about. What is the memory haunting you?
So, yeah. So you don't want it to be too specific, because that'll
Yeah.
make it more difficult to
And
use
I
that
think
move.
what it says, when the past is not decided yet, it'll emerge from gameplay. That doesn't mean you don't know what it is. Like, you could have lots of pieces of it that you discover along the way, but I think the point is, whatever this memory is, it is unresolved. That's the key. So maybe, it could be like, you were in a deep relationship with someone, and then you had a big fight, and then you ran away, and you just haven't seen them since. And you don't know, like, where are they now? Are they okay? Are they still mad? Would they want to get back together? You don't know. You literally haven't talked to them, right? Or if you ran away from a job working for, let's say, the mafia, right? Mm-hmm. They're still looking for you, maybe. It's unresolved. So what we don't want the memory to be is something where this bad thing happened in my past, and maybe I'm still sad about it, but it's done. Whatever it is that's the memory is, it needs to be unresolved, because that's what the haunting is about. Like, it needs, that's what you would need to deal with it with. And so then you can have character weights, where when a classic session ends in a failure, your characters will have to carry a weight. You're going to have to carry that weight is like a recurring phrase in the show. And so when you write the failed session under your memory, these weights represent something of your character's past that is still unresolved. And then you can eventually, through different mechanics, you can essentially mark off those weights as like you've dealt with it. And then that can improve your character's outcome in an eventual season finale type of deal. All right. Groove. Now, this is the big one, because I think what's interesting is, in all of this stuff about building characters, groove is the only one where it says, don't have more than one player pick the same groove. Everything else, it basically just says, everyone should just pick whatever they want. Groove is the one where it says everyone should have a different groove. And groove is meant to be, you choose the one that you feel like has, in the fiction, the best description of the kind of way that you uniquely approach problems. And then it will give you a specific mechanic that only you can do, that manipulates the other rules in some specific way. So, for example, Lone Wolf is a groove. And so in the fiction of it, you often work alone, wandering away from others and coming back later on with important results and maybe some scars. What you don't know won't hurt you. The mechanic is that you can always use rock traits for both blues and jazz tests, right? And so that is why I wanted to go through all of that stuff about the approaches and tests earlier, because that's what the grooves do, is that you can sort of brute force one of your traits into other types of approaches in that way. And then it says, take this if you want to play a character that sometimes needs to take matters into their own hands to get the right result. But you can see we have lots of different grooves available. Against the odds, faster than the eye, long-term plan, loose handcuffs, memento of war, mirror of the soul, out of the box, scrapmaster, utter determination, virtue of necessity. And so each of those has its own unique mechanic to it. And this is one of the main things when you're building your character mechanically, is choosing your groove. Like, you might have chosen your concept in whatever other way, but the groove is, one of the big pieces of how your character will play as a game mechanic. So that brings us here in the book to the character creation phase, which it suggests going in the following steps. 1, mothership. 2, grooves. 3, concept. 4, memory. 5, traits. 6, personal ship. And 7, name. it's certainly everyone can come up with a name right away if they prefer, but I in my own experience, I often find that I want to figure out everything else before I can come up with the name. But everyone does that differently. So the mothership phase is actually more than just coming up with what is the ship in question, right? So every character can have their own personal little one-person fighter, because that's kind of how it is in the show, right? Everyone has their own little fighter. They don't have to have one. They can have something else instead, but that is sort of one of the default expectations, is that you can have one of these little things. But you also have the main ship where everyone just kind of hangs out and uses it to travel around more broadly. And so we are going to do we're going to create a mothership for a campaign here, and part of this involves what they describe deciding the themes and tone of the campaign. And so, for example, like, do you want to play in a story full of heists? Perhaps a fast frigate is right for you. Is your story more of a detective story and your characters are all ex-cops? Then you really should choose a heavily armed vessel acquired from ISSP. And so those are sort of examples. And it has a table with lots of sort of example options for what type of ship it might be, what approaches it might be good for, example names, and then different themes. And so this table is starting on page 95 through 100. These are different. So we could roll for these, or you could just you could look through the available options there and decide if one of those looks right, or if you have some other idea.
What do you say we roll?
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, so there are 3 of you, so I will suggest that one of you can roll for the design, one of you for the first external feature, which is going to also be a theme, and then the second external feature is going to be for a tone, but they're also all like mechanic based as well. So
okay. All right.
Who would like
I'll
to
roll,
do which?
I'll roll a design.
Okay. So this is 2d6.
Yeah, I rolled the most common, which is a 7, and that is a multifunction
multifunction vessel. The ship has probably been modified to fit one or more functions on top of whatever the basic model can perform. Whether capable of navigating water or surfing the gas rings of planets, it holds many surprises, and it's good for a jazz approach. And it has multi as a sort of example ship name. Also jam. And then a theme would be travel. Staying in one place for more than a few hours is a waste of time or money. Anyone who pilots this ship wants to push themselves to the edge of the system. What do y'all think about that?
I like the ship in Bebop had like had a curved hull. Looked like it was also made for water.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull from another anime and say that this ship started its life ages ago as a submarine. It might have been a fairly, modern one by 21st century standards, but it started off as just a submarine on Earth, and it was, sitting in some scrapyard somewhere, and somebody said it's already got a nice heavy hull, and there's all kinds of like life support stuff in there. This would be pretty easy to make into a ship now that we have these, advanced thrusters. So they stuck some rockets on it and flew it into space. But it still looks like a 20th century attack sub.
For this show that I've never heard of, the actual ship they have was actually an old fishing trawler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it, kind of fun in that way is that they often would just land in water. They didn't have to go to like a docking port. Otherwise, they could just land on a river or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
great.
So as a name, hold on a
Well,
second.
so let's wait to pick the final name until we've got
Okay.
the other two traits as well. But so a suggested theme for a multifunction vessel is travel. Like you really do kind of just go all over the place. We don't have to have that be our theme, but that is just a suggested one.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think specifically I want adaptability.
I was also thinking that one of the things could be because because I enjoy this concept. I was thinking that we could have a navigational AI.
Mm-hmm.
Because and you were talking about a name, Nobilis. You know, we
Mhm.
could just call the ship failsafe.
Ah!
And you know, we could have a multi-personality AI.
Well, let's see what the
Well,
other
so
roles give us.
navigation
Let's see what they-
AI is actually one of the choices. I don't know if you pulled it from there or if you were just bringing it up.
Oh no, that's what
General.
I was looking
Yeah.
through the themes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So absolutely. Let's say that. So that one is in the tone column. Navigation AI. The ship is equipped with a sentient AI that is part of the crew for all intents and purposes. And that suggests a dance approach. And so that could actually mean like it absolutely one of the PCs could be the AI if you want, right? Like doesn't have to be. Tone irony. The crew's relationship with his synthetic sentience creates funny yet dramatic situations that bring to light the ironic contradictions of humanity. And then it has a couple more example ship names of Smile and Waltzer.
But yeah, I think I think we could do that.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
and who
and so
doesn't
like
want
there's
to?
nothing wrong with picking from the table instead of rolling either, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
that's absolutely fair. All right, so do you want to choose something or roll for the middle column, David?
I'm gonna try a roll, see
Okay.
what. That's a 1 and a 6, a 7.
All right, well that's fine. So that would come up with solar wings. The ship has sails that can store solar energy and hold it for a long time, releasing it for an energy boost. A little trip to the vicinity of Earth or Venus once in a while is recommended.
So we're now officially Captain Harlock, and we have a ship with sails.
All
It's
right.
fine. It's an old. We retrofitted an old sail ship for some reason.
So, question. It does not have to, but I'm just asking. How does the solar wings work with the former submarine piece? Is that something that we like the potential friction there,
Juxtaposition.
like
or
The contrast is
Yeah.
fabulous.
I mean,
I think,
I'm yeah, it's
honestly,
not a problem. I'm just
I can just imagine the the ship, this dark, dark colored uh, cylindrical
Mm-hmm.
thing just moving silently through the void,
Mm-hmm.
and then as it approaches, uh, you know, um, the light side of a planet, it just blossoms with these shining solar wings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like it's like the rock star coming out on stage, and he's got this big, he's got this all kind of all covering cloak on, and then throws his arms wide, and there's just like glitter everywhere.
Yeah, nice. So it suggests that Solar Wings would have a jazz approach. Theme innovation. Hunters pursue discovery and innovation even as an end in itself. It offers example ship names of Sunny and Fusion. So I think with those three pieces in there, do you have an idea for the name? Certainly there were some examples offered, but it can be anything you want.
Hold on. Mercury.
Sunny Jam Alter. I don't just
I like Mercury.
Oh.
Mercury Waltz.
Well,
Yeah,
also, does
like
this is the ship name the same as the navigation AI's name, or are they different?
I would think so, right? Because it's their body. It would be technically their body, right? Technically, like
Well, I
that's
mean,
what
it
they reside in.
depends. If
Ooh,
they control like the entire ship, then yes. But if they're like
just
just
navigation.
navigation and other things need to have people do them, then maybe not. If it can, you know, lock doors and fire weapons and all the other things, then okay, yeah, it's probably the same. But if it is, you know, if it inhabits the ship rather than being the ship, and either of those is possible, then I would think that it would have a separate name. Uh,
Oh my God. The ship's name is Mercury, and the AI's name is um
Hermes?
Rimmer.
Is that from Red Dwarf or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, cool. That's fun. So let's like those are all of the things that like could theoretically have any sort of like mechanical influence. But let's just brainstorm a little bit. Like, what is the Mercury like? Like, what's it like inside? What kinds of stuff is in there? Like, presumably, it has living quarters that you can live in some kind of communal space, I would imagine, and probably some kind of a piloting area, unless Rimmer just does all of that and you're not in control at all.
No, I think we'd have those facilities, but I think that Rimmer can run the ship if we need to. Like, say, if we have to go on a bounty mission and leave the ship, then Rimmer should be able to at least moderately defend itself without us.
Okay, I visited the U-505 in Chicago, and to tell you that a submarine, the inside of a submarine is cramped,
Oh,
is
gosh.
an understatement. It is really claustrophobic, and even like on a modern nuclear sub, it's still really close.
Well, yeah, and for people our size, absolutely, it's tiny.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I think
It's
seems really fun to me is obviously submarines have that really sort of cramped claustrophobic design. But I kind of love the idea of you might have a submarine that's got that design but was originally used with a crew of like 50, 60 people, but now it's
oh,
just
okay.
the AI and you guys.
Right,
And
right.
so it's still kind of claustrophobic and yet it's still got a lot of like unused space.
Yeah,
Narrow
and
halls, short doorways, but you know, but when it when there's only four people
Mm-hmm.
that might be
yeah.
on there at a time, yeah, you
And
could go days without seeing someone.
yeah, and for easier access, we could turn the gravity off and float through, float through some.
There's if it was like an old nuclear sub, that there's these silo tubes that are actually but now that the war the missiles are no longer there, that's the roomiest space in the place. So
Mm-hmm.
each of us has got and one of these is like a place, a stateroom, a place to live, because it's the biggest space in the area. But they're vertical, right? They're like 3 stories tall and 10 feet in diameter. So we've got like these platforms set up in them, and
Well,
ways to clamber around inside. But
what's the what is like the art? Is there artificial gravity in the in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
It is definitely something that can be turned on and off because that definitely happens in the show
yeah,
in some
uh-huh.
episodes. Is that there are plenty of places that do not have artificial gravity and you're floating around in them, but also plenty of places that do.
okay, because I was saying like if you have your room is in a vertical tube, basically it's like you're going, and you walk in and you basically almost walk over a cliff, but the
Mm-hmm.
gravity reorients
Yeah.
to.
Oh yeah,
Well,
you could reorient the gravity in your tube so that it's horizontal instead of
the other
vertical.
fun thing with those launch tubes is you could have those be the launch tubes for your little monocraft,
Yeah,
your little
yeah,
fighters.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I like that idea.
Mm-hmm. That's fun.
Actually, now I want this to be an actual show because like that would maybe a really cool way to launch your fighters. Like,
Mm-hmm. Funny how
just-
that goes, right? When you do this, right? So, any more ideas for the ship, or do you want to move on to grooves now?
No,
I
think the
think
ship's good.
I'm ready for grooves.
Okay. So, as we mentioned, grooves are starting on page 70. 70 through 74 are where the grooves are listed. And so, does anyone have their own groove that they've kind of picked out or are thinking about?
I would like to stake my claim on Memento of War at the start.
Memento of War. Fiction, you've been to war and you've seen things. You know pain, you know how to handle it, and you know how to keep it real when you relate to others. Mechanic, you can always use blues traits for tango and rock tests. Blah, I could have enough breath to finish a sentence. Take this if you want to play a character with a really heavy burden who is ready to endure and also take care of others. Nice.
I'm
And his history is more with the ISSP than with
Sure.
military, but I think it's given the
no.
way the ISSP works, entirely relevant.
So yes, in the Cowboy Bebop setting, the ISSP is essentially the police force for the whole big solar system area. Yeah.
SS stands for solar system.
I'm gonna go with long-term plan because I want to have a character who's a fixer, what's his name, like Red from Shawshank.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. The guy who can get it for you.
Yeah.
Fiction, some say that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Others say that luck is when opportunity finds you. You have prepared for everything, and while it's hard to understand your mysterious actions, when the plan unfolds, everything becomes clear, and your plans always come together. Mechanic, immediately after rolling the dice, you can remove a single die and keep it for later, saving its result. In any test later in the session, immediately after rolling, you can add that die result to the result. You can have only one die at a time kept in this way. So, for example, if you do a test and you end up with 2 5s and a 6, and the difficulty was only 10, the 5 and the 6 make it a success. So you take that 5 and you save it for a later roll. That's kind of neat. Take this if you like it when a plan comes together, or if you like using flashbacks to reveal your character's plan. That's fun. That's fun.
I have these Ocean's 11 style how I got this item in my head now.
Nice. How about you, David?
I'm gonna go with out of the box.
Okay. Fiction. There is a right way to do things, there is a wrong way to do things, and there is your way to do things. Harmful, dangerous, but wonderfully effective. The mechanic for that is immediately after rolling dice for a test, you can add a shock to turn a die with a result of 2, 3, 4, or 5 into a 6. And so, as we discussed, 6 obviously is not only the highest result for the total, but in order to get the second possible hit on any test, you want to have at least 2 6s. So you would have a way of turning one of the other dice into a 6, but at the cost of a shock. So there's always going to be a consequence, but you can improve the amount of success. One of the things that I think is interesting about this system, and there are other systems that do this too, is the result is not along a single axis, right? Because even in Powered by the Apocalypse, for example, you say the higher the better, right? And there is such a thing as a mixed success, but in this case, they're almost completely independent. Like, there is the degree of success, but also the degree of problems, and those are independent of one another. And I think that's interesting. So you can improve your success of your own role at the cost of something else happening. That's fun. Great. So, Memento of War, out of the box, and long-term plan. You probably, especially if we were going to be going on to play this for a while, you would probably want to make sure you understand the mechanic for your groove specifically. But for now, I think we're mostly kind of going through for flavor. Okay. So, once we have the grooves, it is time for the character concept. And this is, again, we're not looking for a 3-page backstory here. We're looking for, like, what is the one sentence way that you would describe your character and their whole deal? Does anyone have theirs ready, or do we want to still think about it?
Yeah, I have mine.
Okay.
Mine is my concept is aging cyborg.
Okay.
And mine is former scientist.
Nice, nice. All right. And
Yeah, and mine would be a fixer. I would say, or I would, or
you say space fixer.
yes.
And I like, as we kind of touched on earlier, but it has this little sidebar under concepts of saying, wait, pets? You could also choose to make something unusual and play a pet, a non-human character. Everything works out pretty much the same, but your selection of iconic items can be a bit narrow. Regardless, you have a wide array of physical characteristics that could represent your character, and it's just talking specifically about the idea that, like, encouraging thinking outside the box. Okay, so once you have the concept, the next step is the memory. You should choose a memory, a short sentence describing the past that the character is trying to escape. There are some example memories that we could look at here in the book, if that would be helpful for anyone.
Yeah, what gets me about it is that this is something that the character is trying to escape, which I missed, and I need to double check on it because my initial memory was not appropriate for that.
Well, that's so we can look at some of these different. They have example factions and example memories for imagining maybe you came from that faction. So for, like, the criminals faction, you could say, the Red Dragon hunts me, or I was a White Tiger affiliate, or a close relative of mine was killed by the Blue Snake. Like a tech faction, like the Outer Net. I surfed where I shouldn't have. I was originally an AI, then I developed autonomous thinking. I was a cop, and then ... Or the corrupt...
Actually, that one, yeah, I think that I think that one is appropriate.
Okay.
I'm just going to take that one straight out of the book.
All right. Yeah. Let's see. I owe a lot of money to a health corp because of that operation. I fought in the Titan War I cannot forget. My family lived in a corporate arcology, a monotonous life until ... And so, like, you can see the ideas. They're very basic, and you can decide some details about them, but it should be something that you literally had to flee from in some way, and it is unresolved, meaning it could catch up with you at any time. You don't know. All right, so we've got I was a cop, and then ...
Well,
David, you've written one down.
Yeah, I have, like, running from my own bounty.
So that one is, like, it's not a problem, but because you all are playing bounty hunters, we would probably want to know why your fellow bounty hunters on this ship wouldn't turn you in.
We don't know about it yet.
Yeah. I mean, it could be.
Honestly, it's my how I would go from the start.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, like, you're just kind of hoping nobody finds out.
He's got a synthesized identity.
Yeah, and maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe you're using a fake name or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe there was a setup all along.
Right. Well, some of the things established in the universe are radical plastic surgery altering appearance. People go by pseudonyms and stuff like that. Like that, all of that stuff can be done. And sometimes that's where, there is a whole gray market on that kind of information, right? Because that's one of the early episodes.
Um,
Sorry, I see. Yeah.
Actually, I going off of that,
Mm-hmm.
my character had some pretty hefty plastic surgery
Mm-hmm.
done, and it did change his look. But it like he didn't get the surgery because he's running. He got the surgery as part of recovery,
Mm.
and the event that gained him the bounty caused the injury.
Okay.
Mm.
Mm. So that's interesting. So, but like I said, one of the things that happens in an early episode is the, Spike gets a tip from knowing the doctor who did the surgery. And so there's a wanted bounty, but no one knows what he currently looks like until, get the tip. So like there's a whole gray market for
Yeah.
ways that sort of thing could theoretically come out. That's good. How about you, Jason?
Um, for me, I picked from memory. It's a heist went wrong, and there's a debt to pay.
Uh-huh.
Because I can find whatever, and it just so happens that
Mm-hmm.
it didn't go very well this one time, and bad things happened, and hopefully that'll stay where it belongs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And won't show up at some dramatically and appropriate time.
Great, great. Okay, so the next section is for choosing traits. And as I mentioned, for each trait, you're going to put it in one of those 5 approaches. You're going to start by putting 3 traits, one in each of 3 different approaches. So start with they all have to be in different approaches, and then the 4th one can be anything. But yeah, you can't have any one approach with more than 2 in it. And when you choose which approach it should be in, that should be along the lines of how you imagine you would be most often using it, right? If you have any questions about that, let me know. We can look at some of the other example ones too if you're struggling with any of that. But that's the next step.
And examples of the traits are, I'm just I think I have some, but there's others
Well, yeah. So like page 60 through 68 are all just like all different examples of different kinds of traits that you might have, and showing how you might take a given trait and decide, well, do I want this to be a blues trait or a rock trait or what?
Okay. So I've got my first trait I'd like to suggest.
Okay.
Blues trait, thinning gray hair.
All right.
Anybody else want to take a try, or should I just go through all the traits?
Well, I'm interested in that one just because I feel like more often the expectation for these would be things that you think make you look cool, and the thinning gray hairs. But
blues is spirituality and self-awareness, and it's a lot less. It's a lot less. Well, it's about I think it's appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, it's all about in how you feel like you would use it, and I'm not questioning it. I was just observing that I thought it was an interesting choice.
Don't worry. The ones that make him look cool are coming.
All right. Well, if other people want to jump in, you can. Otherwise, if you have more planned.
Okay. So for a jazz trait, I'm putting down Janis Joplin mirror shades.
Oh. Fun.
You get what the look of that would be?
Yeah, let's see.
Janis Joplin wore these gigantic tinted circular glasses.
Yeah, here, let's see. I can put a, oops, put put that up on the screen here just for real quick. Um, and, yeah,
So
oops.
just
So,
imagine a pair of those except mirrored.
yeah. Those are fun. Yeah, the big round frames mirrored.
Yeah.
Nice. What
And
I was
then
it actually just makes me think like in the anime of it all, how often that's a trait of uh, like evil or sinister or sometimes just badass for a character who has glasses to have the light sort of flare in them.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly the image that I had in mind.
Nice.
And then for a dance trait, uh, a huge cyber pistol. So he kind of flexes his hand, and the gun, a kind of explosive charge in the holster tosses it into the air, and it lands in his hand, and he shoots in just like an instant. And the thing is way too big for him. It's like he's a little guy, and it's a Desert Eagle, and because he's got these cybernetic enhancements inside that you really can't see,
Mm-hmm.
he just effortlessly
Nice.
handles the recoil on this gigantic pistol.
Is it entirely hidden or invisible when it's not like out?
No, I mean, it's in a holster. It's in a
Okay.
holster. You can see it there,
Mm-hmm.
and people who are underestimating him, because that's part of his deal, is being underestimated. Um, uh, uh, is uh, the yeah, you can't tell from looking at him that right off the bat that he's a cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all internal.
Okay.
But um if you took off his glasses, you'd see.
Nice.
So let's see.
And then because I can use my blues traits for rock and tango, I'm going to leave those empty and add another blues trait with a really sharp suit
Okay.
with jodhpurs.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, again, this is a kind of taking a villain trope and kind of sticking it on our
Sure.
ostensible
Yeah.
hero. But and I was also trying to think of things that could be used in rock, blues, and tango.
Yeah.
For that. So, yeah.
Cool.
That is ECM.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We hadn't done name yet, even though I know you have got one picked out. But all right. So who else has got some traits?
I've got Oh yeah, you go ahead, Dave. Good.
Right. So I have for rock, I have resilient lab coats.
Ooh.
Basically, essentially armor because accidents sometimes happen.
Mm-hmm.
And for tango, I have explosive bottle.
Nice.
Because when you're good way to get information out of someone.
Okay. So, like you imagine that the primary way you would be using those is by like scaring people with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
As
people
opposed
listen to you when you've got explosives.
Well, right. Well, I just mean like, and like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this because the whole thing is that you can put them in different traits. It's just is interesting because an explosive we could easily imagine that being like a rock or a dance trait in terms of like it being really like a really powerful explosion or just really flashy and precision. But if your primary thing is you're basically going to influence people,
basically like a bottle of chemicals, and it's like take a drop out of it, drop it on the floor, and it goes bang, and then you basically shove it in the person's hand,
Mm-hmm.
and if you drop that, this you will be
All right.
finished.
Yeah. Are you not putting it on the spreadsheet? Or
I just until I was ready.
okay. Yeah.
I
No, that's fine. Yeah.
So then I
This-
have Jazz long limbs, kind
Okay.
of. Guess it's like kind of gangly, but when he's doing what he knows, he's really good at
Okay.
what he does.
Well, and jazz is focused on like sort of improvising with the environment. So like you just kind of you have a long reach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Nice.
when I at a workstation, he's like,
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
and another jazz trait is thick glasses
Okay.
because piercing at things. They
Sure.
you know, might have some other than mundane, maybe like some enhancement kind of things.
Okay.
But
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So you should have one more in another approach.
isn't it four total?
Yeah, you said so. You said the
Rock, tango, jazz.
Oh,
Resilient.
right. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I forgot well because you weren't putting them on the spreadsheet, so I couldn't remember. So that's okay. But yeah. So the rock lab coat was the one I was forgetting. Gotcha. Okay. Cool. So how about you, Jason?
He's oh sure. One of the traits he's going to have is a cybernetic eye
Okay.
because that's what he uses to help appraise things. It's kind of a cheat code for him. And then also he's going to have an eye patch that he wears over it that says "My good eye."
So is that a separate trait, or is it kind of just a flavor bit for your first one?
Well, because I know that you can have the cybernetics as traits, but I didn't know if I could just have the eye patch and that be
Oh,
it.
look, you can have your character be wearing whatever you
Okay.
want. The traits are really just like if you're specifically going to highlight something in that moment. And so I feel like the eye patch is a very cool look, but I feel like it would probably be related to having a cybernetic eye as opposed to a separate trait. Like
Right.
that's not to say you couldn't have it, but I just mean imagine how you're describing the scene. Do those feel separate? Like
No, they don't.
yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
getting at. Yeah,
Okay,
I think
so
it's very
I'll have-
cool, but maybe not a separate trait.
Yeah, so I'll have the jazz trait be the cybernetic guy because that's kind of how he ad libs with his business of finding things.
Sure.
And a tango trait because they're for dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to have a gift for gab. So
Cool,
basically, he's
cool.
kind of like that used car salesman.
Yeah.
And then,
Cop, bad cop. Good hunter, bad hunter.
we're more like sleazy cop, you know. Like, he's not a
I mean,
bad cop.
officially, none of you are cops anymore, and the actual cops will be very happy to point that out to you.
And let's see.
Right, but if they were doing their job,
Yeah,
we'd be out of ours.
Mhm.
right. And our trait is let's make a deal. Actually, no, I want to make that a. Well, no, that would probably be gift again. Rock trait. You know what? I don't have actually any weapons, so I will have a small holdout pistol because Han
Okay.
shot first, and I would like to call that trait Han shot first.
Nice. Okay. And
'Cause
that's in rock.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's
all right,
literally
cool.
that's literally what it's for. Because I'm
Yeah.
not a fighter, so I'm gonna do like I'm gonna
Well,
get you, Greedo.
I mean, so I feel honestly like putting it in rock is almost more saying you are a fighter with it. You know what I mean? Because it means you want to use it to do rock tests.
oh, yeah.
Mechanically, that's how it's going to help you, right?
Yeah.
Now that said, so the key of for which approach to put it in, there's the flavor element, but also that means this is your good thing, right? It means you're creating these traits based on what you're going to want to use.
Ooh, then yes, then I'm actually gonna make it a it's an old pistol, like a literal old pistol, because there are the antiquarians who deal in like the old archaic technology. So his weapon is an old revolver, like an actual hammerback revolver.
Nice. All right. Are you still you're still putting it in rock?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what I'm just saying is like putting it in a rock trait means you're going to want to do rock approaches because you have a trait in it.
Right.
Right. Okay. Cool. So that's 3. I think you get one more. That can be in a new approach, or it can be a second one in one of the approaches you've got.
Oh, his blues trait is I'll have a blues trait, and it will be he has a delightful singing voice.
Oh, nice. That's fun.
Nobilis, is your 4th one supposed to be showing up on the sheet? Your 4th trait?
Looks like you've got your cursor there, but the text isn't showing.
Okay.
There you go. All right, cool. I think that's what it shows as a gray box to everyone else when it's like being typed in. Okay, cool. So those we've got everybody's traits. Good work. And then so next, I believe where did I lose this? Okay, there we go. Personal ship. So this is where if you have what they call a mono racer or a zip craft, basically your own little one-person sort of fighter ship, you don't have to have one, but if you would like to have one, and why wouldn't you? We're gonna
what page are we looking
make
at?
those now. So creating your mono, basically you're going to give it a name, and that'll be like one trait. The name itself, the ship, the existence of it is one trait, where you can, for a test, say you are using your ship, and it can be a trait that you can use just like your other traits, if it makes sense in the fiction that you're using your ship to do something, right? And then you also get to have another 2 traits that represent equipment or features on it, and there are tables for example names and weapons and equipment feats, and that's on page 101 and 102 if you need help thinking of things. But you should also just be thinking like, what does it look like? What's its deal? Like, what's its vibe? What stuff does it have? So, like, if we were to, while you guys are thinking about it, I will roll a random one. So, a random one with the name is. Let's see, 9. So then it's called Gurnard, and it has on it. It has a vacuum grenade and a container on it. And so the weapons are vacuum grenades, and it has a container equipment that you could use to store stuff, or carry stuff around, or hold a bounty in or something.
It looks like they have a theme here that they have they're all fish.
Well, I think that's based on kind of theming in the show that a lot of them are
Right.
kind of called.
Right. So I'm gonna name my ship the Mola.
Say that again.
Mola, Mola.
Okay.
It's one of the most useless fish in the sea. It's the ocean sunfish,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of weirdly put together. It's just like a pancake with a big fin on the top and the bottom, and they're known to be like a fisherman catches one in his net, and it's like, oh, because they like got like no meat on them. They're no challenge to catch. It's just throw the thing back. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It
So
just crowded
it's in
out
the
space for other fish in your net.
yeah. It's it's kind of generally considered kind of useless,
Mm-hmm.
and in my theme of kind of being underestimated,
Nice.
um, uh, uh, so its and its weapon is jammer. It's good at things like um, preventing preventing enemies from communicating, uh, jamming their sensors so you can't see
Mm-hmm.
them coming, um, that kind of thing.
All right. Cool.
Um,
So the other guidance that it has for did you say what the equipment was? You said the jammer for the weapon.
yeah, yeah, and for the equipment, remote autopilot.
Okay.
Uh, so
Nice.
he can like call it in from even though if he's not piloting it.
So it actually has in here monos often have fishy names such as Jet's hammerhand or hammerhead or Faye's redtail or Spike's even more obvious swordfish too. It says, when thinking about a name for your mono, always ask yourself, will it be named after a fish or do I want it to represent an aspect of my character? Maybe there's a way to do both. To create the other two traits of your mono, first ask yourself about its function. You may wish to use traits that imply something about the setting or simply describe the trait's function. And it gives examples like, is it a fast racing zipcraft? Then a Rolls-Royce AF-15C Aerospike turbine engine is for you, but you could just name it the trait turbine engine to emphasize the power of the engine. So you don't have to choose from that table, but those are just examples.
I was just
Yeah.
using it for
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I'm
inspiration.
just reading the other guidance while David and Jason are thinking, unless they're ready.
Yes. So mine will be known as the Dungeness. It'll have an EMP discharge and external pincers that it can use for, heisting things.
Nice.
And it also does kind of look like a crab. Like it actually does kind of look like a little crab.
Fun.
I'm gonna go kind of meta with the name of mine.
Okay.
My name of mine is Clem.
Clam?
Clem.
Oh, okay.
The EM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, okay.
And the equipment it will have is a container.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. And for the let's see. Oh, for the weapon. Um. hmm. Um. Let's see.
Yeah.
One of us ought to have
Yeah.
a weapon that was actually capable of finishing something
Yeah.
off.
I mean, maybe. Not necessarily.
Actually, um.
Hmm?
Specially rigged repair drone.
Okay. I mean, sure.
Basically, it's like yeah, and basically it's you would be used as essentially a smart torpedo
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Okay. So is it used as a weapon or as a repair drone?
as a weapon. Like it,
Okay.
basically like you'd fire it and it would go and like you fire it with the target of the engines
Sure.
and
So
it would go in.
I have no objection to that, but why isn't it just a torpedo? Why is it a repair drone if it's not repairing?
It used to be
Repurposed?
a repair drone.
Okay, well there you go. Well, so I would. How about repurposed repair drone then, just to highlight
Yeah.
that you've. It's not just a repair drone, like because that tells us more about it too, right?
Okay.
Cool.
So,
Okay.
Jason, do you get the meta on that?
I see.
I'm.
Who would have
Oh,
thought?
okay, yeah. Took me a second, but I got there.
I just want you to know that this is how Rimmer's going to talk.
If anyone watching this is confused, look back into our backlog for our root campaign.
Yes.
That's also a great game. We played a whole campaign of it. So, last but not least, in the character creation process is the name. Does everybody have their character's name?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's hear them.
My character's name is Edward C. Muncie, aka he's known as ECM to his friends and his enemies. But everybody just calls him ECM.
My character is Melvin Hauser.
All right. Is that and that's the name they go by now, or and
That is the name.
Yeah,
That is the name they go by now.
nice. Okay.
My character's name is Oakley P. Stokes, or abbreviated as OPS, aka Other People's Stuff.
Uh-huh. Got several initial names. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is the character creation and setup process. Do you want to? So there's not like a specific mechanic for it, but how do we suppose that ECM and OPS and Melvin managed to end up on this ship on Mercury together?
Maybe this ship was we thought it was a derelict and we all showed up to try to recover it for a quick buck and find out that the ship is it's sentient. It talks to us.
Right, because we've established that. How about like one of us came here looking for a target, another person came wanting to salvage the ship, another person had some other reason, and it all just kind of came together.
May I suggest this is absolutely something that would happen in a Cowboy Bebop setting, is the AI Rimmer was lonely and manipulated the three of you into arriving at the ship at the same time and then presented to you that you should all be a crew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been floating for centuries, so it kind of went nuts.
Yeah.
It's not the stablest AI in the Dane.
I mean, it's been it's been on the outer net a lot, so it understands how things work, but it wanted some IRL friends.
Yes. Yeah.
I think
good conversation. Good conversation.
But I can just imagine Melvin's like, I had someone lined up for that material, and now I can't sell it.
Who wants to watch Big Shots? Big Shots, the television program for bounty hunters.
Yeah, it needs a friend to watch its soaps with.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about Murderbot. Okay, we're probably never going to play this campaign. So what I wanted to put out there was that Edward Muncie
Mm.
is dead, and his cybernetic enhancements are now in charge.
Are you trying to say you're a space zombie?
Well, I mean, his organs still function,
Mm-hmm.
but he had a stroke in the middle of a firefight. His emergency protocols took over, and his brain and his implants have been in such close contact over the years that they could just take over his identity, and he's, at some point it comes out that the brain that's in his skull isn't actually functioning, and everything's just being run by his
is
implants.
it entirely then like a computer consciousness? Or what I could imagine with cybernetics is a blurring of the two. Like hypothetically,
Yeah.
when we talk about like a person's consciousness becoming uploaded into a computer or something like that, and you can
it's
imagine
a kind of a binary state. It's
but doesn't have to be binary state necessarily, right?
And in
like,
Edward's
because
case,
you can
it
imagine
wasn't,
like you use your own brain, but you have like a little hard drive for like backup memory or something. But then gradually more and more of your memory is on the computer, and then eventually it starts to like you've also got a chip that helps you with this and a chip that helps you with that. And at a certain point, you start saying, okay, well, how much of you is one versus the other? How much does that matter? And I suddenly imagined, I don't want to like take over your character, but I suddenly imagined Edward being in kind of that state for a while where he just doesn't think about it really very much until he just does a diagnostic at one point and realizes, wait, all of my biological brain is inactive? Oh.
Yeah. It'd be something that he would discover in the course of the story.
Right. Okay. But so the point being that it's not like the little robots, computers in the cybernetics thinking that they're having to puppet him around. It's still his entire consciousness has gradually shifted over. He doesn't think of himself any differently, but he would discover that the organic parts of his consciousness are now
they atrophied. He stopped using them.
Yeah.
They atrophied.
Well, they atrophied. He stopped using them, but there's also like he had a like either Alzheimer's or a stroke or something catastrophic, and it just like
what that actually makes me think of is a very different genre of show, but also anime of the sort of one of the big secret reveals in Madoka Magica, where these girls essentially become like Sailor Moon style magical girls essentially, but what part of what they discover only after they've gone through the process is, oh, this little magical gem that gives you all your powers, technically that's you now, and you are remote controlling the meat puppet of what used to be your body. But technically speaking, your consciousness actually is in the gem, so better not lose it, because then your body will stop working.
Listen. Madoka Magica is a bitter pill to swallow.
Yes, and
delightful
again, it's
show,
like to discover that. Oh no, that's what happened. That's what we did to you when we made you this way. You didn't realize? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. The ethics of turning little girls into magical murder machines. It's fine.
Well, someone has to do it.
That is true, because there are evil monsters.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to see a malicious version of this, there's a action horror movie called Upgrade, where a guy gets a cybernetic implant that uses his higher functions to make him see things, to make him go do stuff. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good movie. Action scenes are really good in that thing.
Okay, so I don't know that I would necessarily be easily prepared to just like run a session right now. We could try, but what we could at the very least do is there is a bounty generator set of tables. And that can maybe be fun to play around with. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, sure.
Okay, so just to begin, there are several categories of bounty. Does someone want to roll 2d6 to see what category of bounty might be the first up?
8.
8. That would be a mobster.
Yeah.
Sounds
And
good.
so if we go to the mobster category, here we go. Criminal organizations of the solar system are as powerful and dangerous as the many corporations that hold institutional power. So there's one of the things that each bounty needs in any session of this is that each bounty gets their own groove, and then they need a secret, right? As previously established, part of the way the bounties work is mechanically in the system this is enforced is that no matter what else happens, no matter how close it seems in the fiction, like the characters might be to getting and collecting on this bounty, they cannot actually succeed if they have not yet discovered the secret. And so once they have, that will be the way that works is you have the secret and that becomes a new trait that you can use for rolls. But it also just means that the bounty will always have a way to get away from you until you know it. And right. So some of the mobster bounties that they offer here is like one might have a groove of high-rise view. Sometimes the characters can't stop at the smaller players and they need to reach the top of the tower. Like the bounty is a crime lord. Gangsters, traps, security systems, and blackmail are all tools of the trade available to use against the characters. They have a mechanic for that of bounty hunters can't spend hits to reduce the difficulty unless they do the show-off riff. And, you know, get secrets, and it has a secret for every approach. So, like a rock secret could be the bounty is planning to run away, destroying the whole building in the process. Or a dance secret could be the bounty is holding politicians' children hostage. Blues secret, the bounty is terminally ill and wants to confess everything, taking many criminals down before they die. Tango secret, the bounty is bleeding the crime organization dry with healthcare spending, trying to cure their terminally ill spouse. Jazz secret, the bounty has invited many other crime lords to a major meeting and is planning to detonate the whole building and disappear themselves. And so, and then tips like remember that the blues secret and the tango secret are intense topics, so use safety tools and check in regularly. The bounty has some Nakatomi Plaza vibes. The characters will need to reach the highest floor of a skyscraper to get to their bounty. Should be an action-packed session, whatever the genre. Let the characters interact with the bounty via phone, chat, intercom, security cameras, or whatever you deem appropriate. And that's just one example of a mobster bounty. They have another one of a smaller fish bites harder. Someone stole the wrong thing from the worst possible person. There's a bounty on their head, but who is really going to pay? And in the fiction, like the bounty is not a threat. The ones who put a price on their head are. They are using the characters to track the bounty down and proceed with an execution. And so that's an example of one, you know, that like mixes things up. And so like this game has a lot of these sorts of ideas for how to, you know, to build a quick little bounty setup. It also has a lot of good stuff on just, you know, setting fluff for the system. For example, if you guys flip to page 175 of the PDF, it's got an inner system gate map for the Cowboy Bebop setting, something that the show certainly never bothers with.
Yeah.
I'm thinking our mobster should I like that the smaller fish bites harder, but I think it would be like that our mobster was the kingpin. Like he was on top and the smaller fish bit him. And so now there's an infight. There's a civil war kind of going on. And so you can either try to take out the other fish to stop it or take out the big fish and then maybe chaos ensues. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that this game really encourages is, let's say you do the first tab, which is get everyone in their stuff together, where, you know, you get the target, you start doing some initial intel on it, and then, but you find out that there's something more interesting about some aspect of the whole story. Like maybe it turns out that one of the rival mobsters that is going to get taken out by this big boss is actually kind of like he's a mobster, but he's really a nice guy. You actually kind of like this dude. You don't want him to get hurt in all of this. And eventually you might discover that you are absolutely more invested in making sure that this guy will be okay than you are about actually collecting the bounty. You know, and so and the game encourages making that the new priority if that seems like what the players actually care about. And so then instead of having the climax, the Let's Jam third tab, be all about do you catch the bounty or not, or even do you stop this guy from executing his plan or not, it could be about it's a success if you help this guy get away.
Oh.
Yeah.
And there could be some money in it for us, you know?
Yeah. Because maybe they're a good guy and they have money. And so there's lots of good setting stuff, but there's also kind of a neat section here in the book where they give examples for if you wanted to play as the crew of the Bebop, you know, from the actual show, has example characters for, you know, character sheets using this system for each of the characters. So, for example, Spike has got the faster than the eye groove. His traits are, he has a rock trait for custom IMI Jericho, his semi-automatic pistol. As a rock trait, it will primarily be used for, the gun will be used what it's designed for shooting anyone who gets in Spike's way. He has a dance trait of Jeet Kune Do, his martial art. He has a blues trait of cybernetic eye. Tango trait of cigarettes, and jazz trait of blue suit. And his mono is the Swordfish 2, a racer with shiny red plates and a laser cannon. And his memory is I was a Red Dragon affiliate. And so it has those for all of the different characters. And then it has even more interesting, I think. It has a section for every episode of the actual show where it describes what happens as though it were a play session. So saying like, this is the part that would be the get everyone in their stuff together tab. This is the part that would be the 3, 2, 1 tab. This is the part that would be the Let's Jam tab. Here's how what the objectives might be. Like what's happening in the show, here's how you might represent that as clocks for objectives in a session. I think that's really interesting as something to include in the book here. But yeah, so that's the Cowboy Bebop RPG, and short of actually trying to start a real session, which I'm not sure I'm entirely prepared for, but we could wing it. But it sounds like everyone's kind of fine just having explored the character creation for right now.
Yeah. We can stick this in our back pocket to play again at some point. But this is the kind of thing, I think, given the way it has these session to session mechanics, where, you know, we play this session, next session is going to be a personal episode, you know, or, you know, and that this, and it's built around having a season with a finale at the end. I think we would want to have like set aside some real time for it.
Yeah. So obviously, like I don't know, anyone watching or listening to this may not know, but we are planning to run the Planescape Dungeons and Dragons module. We'll be starting that up in March, and we're going to be running that for a while. But this is a game that we could definitely consider for running a campaign of. In the future.
I would be on board with it. Yeah.
And this feels, it definitely, with the like adaptability of everything, it definitely gives me a lot of Root vibes. And I'm honestly and truly, Root was probably one of my favorite systems. I really enjoyed Root.
Yeah, Root that's a great game.
Yeah.
All right.
This has got a few.
Well, so you know, maybe one thing that we could do just to actually sort of interface with the way the moves work is we could imagine just sort of a vignette of maybe this mobster who's you know, at the top of the building, and we could just imagine, like, each of you just imagine one sort of a circumstance in which you would be wanting to try to do something that might be a test, and then we can try the how the roll works.
Sure, I like it.
So because obviously we're well, how about this? I will just sort of present that you have made your way almost to the top. You know that this guy who's been taunting you over the intercom the whole way along, you've almost reached his office, but it turns out that he has got a room full of his top enforcers is between you and his office. So, like, what would each of you want to try to do in that circumstance? And so I'm going to say, like, it would be, let's say it was a 4-step clock to get through those enforcers, and it would be a rock approach because mostly they're just tough and you just need to fight them is the expectation.
Okay, interesting. I would. I mean, I'd like to take the first crack at this.
Sure.
And
I would imagine we're in our third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I am a warrior. I'm going to go in guns blazing, and I'm going to use a dance test because I don't need to use a rock test on the first one we do, which is at the last.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use a dance test and pull out my huge cyber pistol and start blowing these guys away.
All right. So in the third tab, you're going to start with 3 dice, 3d6 for being in the third tab. And you're using your huge cyber pistol trait from your chosen approach. And so that'll be a fourth one. And we, if this was a classic session, we would have had a genre, and you might get an extra one if it was the same. You know what? I picked that it was a rock test, so I'll say it's a rock genre, which means people who use rock approaches will get an extra d6. But for you, you would have 4. But let me, where does it say the difficulty for the different tabs? Because there's a default difficulty number that you're trying to get to. Okay, so I believe in the third tab. Okay, in the third tab, if the bounty secret was not revealed, well, we'll say that it was. The bounty can be captured by closing an objective clock. The base difficulty is 15.
Okay.
So,
which is pretty close to the average for 4 dice. So I gotta.
All right.
Oh boy. Let me roll another die because one of them dropped off the table. Okay. So this is interesting.
Okay.
My total is 10.
Okay.
But I rolled a 6.
Okay.
Oh, I have to roll 2 6s to get a hit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what that would suggest, so were any of them ones?
Furthermore,
okay.
And furthermore, I rolled 2 1s.
Okay. So what that would mean is that you have generated no hits, at least by default, and there would be 2 shocks, because there would always be at least 1 shock, but there would be 1 for each of those ones. Right. And it doesn't, the default one doesn't count if you have ones based on that. So what that would probably mean is that let's narrate how your initial approach, I think that what these enforcers are doing are buying time for this mobster to get away in his own personal escape pod. And so I'm going to take those 2 clocks and I'm going to fill 2 ticks of his he gets away clock.
And the way this kind of comes out is that he everybody else, we don't know where anybody else is yet, but the elevator opens and there's just this sea of guys.
Yeah.
And ECM kind of looks up, his glasses flash, there's reticles come up in it, and it you see it, you're seeing through his eyes, and just like all this stuff and then overload
Yeah.
comes across because there's just too many targets.
Mm-hmm.
And he dodges back out of the way, and just this wall of lead comes through the elevator door. Like, okay, that's not going to work.
Yeah. All right. So, that works, and so let's
Okay.
also remember what the other riffs would be. Where are those? Sorry, I was trying to pull those up. Just remembering that you can do things like add extra dice by making it get involved. These riffs are on pages 20 and 21.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think that's a good example right up front, is that, you've got your pistol out, you're shooting at him, but there's just so many that he's getting away. You're not going to get through them fast enough with
not this way anyways.
At least not in this initial approach. So
yeah.
What about the rest of you?
Let's see. Oakley looks over at you, EMC, and says, "Well, obviously that didn't work. They don't seem to want to talk. So, I will see. I will find a. You know how there's always a strategically placed electronics panel in these situations, and try to hack my way into the sprinkler system, or actually the fire suppression system, to try to make it so it's hard for them to see and not shoot us full of bullets."
Okay. So that sounds. Are you calling that a jazz approach?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Here we go. And I'm going to use my cybernetic eye.
Yeah. So describe what we're seeing on screen that lets the audience know that you're using your eye.
He literally turns to the camera and lifts up the eye patch that says "My Good Eye," and you see the circuitry kind of glow blue as it traces over the eye, and it begins to try to hack the system.
Nice. Okay. So you would be rolling 3 dice plus the plus 1 for the cybernetic eye, and would you want to try to you can do the push or get involved? The other thing I was going to mention is that you can choose to absorb some of the shocks before I assign them to a clock. I didn't give Novellis the choice to do that.
I think it's more dramatic to have them immediately go to the clock. For Jason's test, for OS's test, I would like to use the assist riff. I was assume that we've got some rhythm.
Yeah, we'll say you would. The way you assign rhythm initially is that at the beginning of any session, everyone rolls 1d6, and that's how many rhythm you have.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I'm going to assume that I've got some rhythm left. I've saved it up, and I'm going to spend that so you can gain advantage.
And advantage basically means you get to roll one more die and then remove the lowest one. Yeah.
Okay.
And how about if I wounded a test in order to take a shock from my test?
Yeah, so that is one of the things that we could have done that I kind of skipped over, is that instead of adding 2 ticks to the escape clock, you could have chosen to wound your huge cyber pistol trait in order to absorb one of those shocks.
And then the assist would allow me to heal that after his test.
Yes. Yeah, because the assisting bounty hunter can heal a wound from their character after the test resolves. But the cost is that you're spending your rhythm. You only can have that have much. Okay, so what that means is you would have rolled 4 dice, but you're going to roll 5 and remove the lowest one and eliminate the lowest one, which is a great way of potentially getting fewer shocks as well.
Yeah.
I got 4. Oh, good. I can take away that 1. Nice. I actually got rid of the 1, and I rolled 2 6s and a 2 and a 3. So I got 5, 11,
17.
All right.
And I will keep one of those. I'll keep one of those 6s.
If
Well,
you
so
keep one of
bear in
those
mind,
6s,
so that
That'll make
so
it an 11.
well, so what you need is 15.
Oh, you need 15. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
So I won't. I
Not
won't
only
keep
that, but if you get 2 6s, you get an extra hit on this roll.
it. Oh, okay.
yeah.
So yeah, and so what that means is by being above 15, you get 1 hit. By having 2 6s at least, you get 2 hits. And because there were no ones rolled after you eliminated that other, right? That means that only the one default shock would apply. You get 2 hits, and there would be 1 shock, but you could choose if you wanted to absorb that shock either by wounding a trait, and it has to be one of the ones you used, so it would have to be the cybernetic eye trait, or by marking one of your bullets, saying that somehow this is personal to you.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna have it be the cybernetic eye. It overloads because
Okay.
I'm definitely making this thing do way more than it's supposed to be
Right,
doing.
like so, like
because we're in an
maybe
elevator.
maybe in order to keep it from, like you what was it that you were doing with it? You were triggering the fire suppression system or something?
Yes, to spray in the corridor that we're in so that it blocks their view.
Okay, so maybe it's like in order to keep it going, it has to stay active on that. Like you can't use it for anything else because it's having to keep holding the button, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Right.
I look at you guys and say, I don't know how long I can do this, but I'm good at splitting my attention.
All right. So that means that you have 2 hits then. You have absorbed the 1 shock. And so that means you can choose where you want to spend the hits. In this circumstance, we really only created 1 clock that you would want to do. But what you can actually also do is the current difficulty target is 15. So you can spend your hits to either tick the success clock or to reduce the difficulty. So if you spent both your hits this time, the new difficulty would be 13 ongoing.
Oh, okay. I like
now
that.
I can also do that in the other direction with shocks.
With shocks, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't absorb the shock, then you can use that to tick the negatives.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, I like this.
Yeah.
So I would like to lower the difficulty twice.
Okay, so that means that you have not made any progress towards stopping this guy from escaping. However, the difficulty for new rolls is lower. Okay.
So I no progress at all on the positive.
But cinematically, we did it hit the fire suppression
Right.
system.
So you're all
places
still at one end of the room. You need to get to the other end of the room, but the fire suppression has got a lot of these guys like disrupted and interfered with. So they're not going to be able to see you to fight you as easy. So you are going to have an easier time.
Well, I guess we need to try and get through here.
Yeah.
So Melvin is going to.
One note also, like for example, if you were doing a jazz approach and you have 2 jazz traits, you can use both. You don't have to pick only one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do a rock approach.
Okay.
And basically, try and kind of turtle up with my lab coat, keep the suppression foam or water or whatever out of my eyes.
Sure.
And protect from any stray bullets, and just charge in.
All right. Cool. So that sounds like that's a rock approach. You would start with 3 dice, add the one for the resilient lab coat.
And because he's using an approach that is in the genre, he gets an extra die for that too, right?
We did say that, yes. So that would be 5 dice.
Okay.
And you could add another 2 if you wanted to say that you were personally involved in some way. Remember also, because we're playing in the 3rd tab, you can also improvise, which is you're spending rhythm to let you use traits from a different approach.
Okay, I'll use the rhythm to pull in long limbs.
All right. So I'm gonna just say, for the sake of things, everyone has one. So ECM has used one already. Melvin is using one now. OPS would have one still. All right. Okay, so you're using your rhythm to also use long limbs. So that's going to be 6d6.
Yes.
All right. Target 13.
Target is 13, you said?
Yep.
Okay, so that is 2 6s, so
Nice.
that's 1 hit. And so it's way over 13.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, how many ones?
No ones.
No ones. All right, so there's still always one shock by default, but you have one hit for getting above 13, second one for having more than 1 6. So you have 2 hits. Are you going to do anything to absorb one of those shocks, or just let it?
I think I'm gonna let it go.
Okay. All right. So in this case, I'm gonna say the fire suppression stuff is starting to clear. The guys are paying attention a little more, and so I'm gonna use it to bump the difficulty back up to 14. But you have 2 hits. Are you going to apply those to lowering the difficulty, or to getting through the room and stopping the escape pod?
I think I apply them to getting through the room.
All right. So you're at 2 ticks of each clock. And so, like, that's a round, essentially, is, everyone has done a turn. So you want to keep playing out this one little mini scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine, yeah.
All right.
All right. I bet you one more round will get it. So,
Okay. Yeah, one way or the other.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to use both of my. I'm going to use my groove of Memento of War, to use to use both of my blues traits as rock traits.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to give me a total of, I think, 6 dice.
Okay. Well, first, how? So we kind of how? What do we see on screen?
Good.
How are you using your traits in that way?
So, rather than now that things are really chaotic and there's the gas and everything, we see a silhouette of ECM's kind of short roundish form drifting through the fog. His the distinctive outline of his jodhpurs in that silhouette, and his hair just his thinning hair kind of wafting around a little because things have gotten nuts and his hair's not as tidy as it was. As he just kind of drifts through the chaos, and a stray round hits him in the head and just twing off of his skull, because he's a fucking cyborg.
Sure. Okay,
so that's 6 dice.
6 dice. So that's starting with 3, and then 2 traits. And what was our 6th one?
So 3 because 3 for the base. 1 because I'm using a rock approach. And it's a rock.
Right, yeah, for the
genre.
genre, yeah,
and then 2 for my 2 blues traits.
All right, so your current target is 14.
Oh man, my rolls are crap tonight.
Oh, no.
Absolute crap. I rolled a total of 16.
Okay.
Okay. So that's 1 hit for me.
Yeah.
But I did roll a 1 as well.
Okay. So a single 1 and a single 6.
A single 1 and the total is 16.
All right. So that means 1 hit for getting above the total. You don't have the second hit.
Shock.
However, with push, you can choose to, if you don't get the 2 hits, you can choose to push to add 2 shocks in exchange for 1 hit.
Yeah, I will do that. I will add 2 shocks in exchange for 1 hit, and I will absorb a shock by wounding my thinning gray hair.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, um, uh, uh, uh,
A few strands drift along the breeze.
Yeah.
yeah.
So here,
Um,
here's yeah. So what that means is you get the extra hit, so that's 2, and that would be enough
Right.
to fill your objective clock, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
then there would be 3 shocks coming from the original
Right.
one, and then the 2 that have been added for push. But if you're absorbing some of those, there's 2 ticks
Yeah.
left in the he gets away clock. So if you can
What
absorb 2
happens
of
if
those,
both? Okay, well, I can also wound. Can I wound more than 1 trait at a time? Because I can also wound really sharp shoot with
yes,
dodgers.
you used both, so you can wound both. But the other way
Okay.
that you can absorb a shock is by marking a bullet to have it be personal.
Oh, okay. I'll mark it. I'll mark that. And these mobsters are the ones that killed my family. This is
Nice.
the same
Yeah.
mob, and as he's like coming forward and you know making it through the thing, just as a kind of a finishing move.
Mm-hmm.
His ship kind of comes around the corner of the building, and there's a kind of a blast that causes the screen to wiggle,
Mm-hmm.
and the escape pod that he was about to leave in just goes.
Yeah, yeah. And to answer your question, it is possible that both clocks could fill at the same time, in which case we figure out what that means. Right? And so in this case, it sounds like, if we were playing the full thing, there might be a little bit more to it, right? Because we haven't essentially completely resolved that there are all these guys necessarily. But also you've stopped him from getting away, so there might be a little more to it, but that's the basic.
Yeah.
That's kind of how the play works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thanks guys for helping me to play around with this system a little bit, learn a little bit more about it, and maybe we will look at it again more in the future. So
Yeah. I definitely like to keep this in our back pocket. This is
Okay. Yeah.
Any excuse I get to talk about shows that I don't know anything about is excellent to me.
All right, so I think just for scheduling purposes, our plan next week is to have the conclusion finale of Lightning's Call, the little mini campaign that David has been running for us. Now, once we'll have all of our players available again, and so that's the plan for that. And then the week after that should be session 0 for our Planescape campaign. So thank you everybody for listening and or watching, and we will be back next week for more adventure on so many levels.
Woo! Yay.